Hello everyone, today we're going to be doing another trip recap video. As you can see by my outfit, we are doing a Waynesville area trip recap where I went there a couple weeks ago for a belated birthday trip. And while there, I got to see a lot of amazing scenery over in the mountains, along with visiting downtown Waynesville and some cool attractions in the Waynesville area. I also got to go on the Blue Ridge Parkway and see the amazing scenery from the top of the mountains, so that was pretty cool. So let us get started with this recap video. But first, you're watching the TheDerpHog, where I make highways content on all sorts of different topics. If you've been enjoying it, be sure to hit that like button, and if you've been really enjoying it, be sure to smash that subscribe button so you're notified on all future videos. And if you really want to help out the channel, become a member today, where you get custom cool emojis, early access to future videos, along with one free exit request per month. And if you don't want to become a member, you can always just pay $3 for a intersection request in future videos. Those highways will be listed down in the description below, and I'll make sure to shout you out when that video releases. So let's get on with the highway. Just like my Springfield trip from last summer, we begin here at the New Hill Holman Road exit off of US 1, where we're going to be taking a left turn onto US 1 South for Sanford. And then we follow US 1 down to 421, where we took the exit for 421 North, signed for Siler City in Greensboro. And after a good 50 miles on US 421 Independent, we took the exit for Interstate 85 here, where we followed 85 South and 421 North towards Charlotte. And then this is where US 421 splits off from Interstate 85 to join with Interstate 73, and we followed 73 and 421 for Winston-Salem and Martinsville. And we followed Interstate 73 and US 421 until the Interstate 40 exit, where US 421 joins with Interstate 40 as they're signed west for Winston-Salem. And this begins a 192-mile journey on Interstate 40 itself. And then about 6 miles up the road, this is where US 421 splits off from Interstate 40 as it's being signed for Winston-Salem and Statesville. I do not like that Statesville, that should be Asheville. We should give you Asheville from here. And then after splitting off from US 421, this is the first exit, North Carolina Highway 66, signed for Kernersville and High Point. And the Route 66 diner is located off of North Carolina 66. In fact, at the North Carolina 66 and US 421 junction. And a little ways up the road, we're now meeting with Interstate 74, and Interstate 40 has no control city, but 74 gets east for High Point. And then now we meet with US Highway 52 and Interstate 285 as they're getting signed north for Mount Airy and Lexington respectively, because we're already within the Winston-Salem area. And then here we meet with US 158, where it's going to become our parallel road all the way down to Moxville, while we're going to be meeting US 421 soon. And here's that set exit with US 421 being signed for Yadkinville. I mean, Yadkinville's alright, but I prefer to see Boone instead. 40 West should definitely not be Statesville, that should definitely be Asheville. Well, look, at our next mileage sign, we do get Asheville signed from 130 miles away. And yes, Asheville does keep up on the mileage signs going this direction, but they like to sign the secondaries at interchanges. And then here we meet with US Highway 601 being signed for Moxville and Yadkinville. And then we also meet the redundant exits of US 64 at exit 162 and 168 respectively. And then here in Statesville, we meet with Interstate 77 as it's getting signed for Wytheville and Charlotte respectively, while 40 West is now finally signed for Asheville. It should have been signed Asheville since Winston-Salem. And here we meet with US 21 being signed for nothing as it'll take you to downtown Statesville, so will North Carolina 115. And here we meet with US 64 along with North Carolina 90 as we're getting signed for West Statesville and Taylorsville. And here we meet with North Carolina Highway 16, which is also getting signed for Taylorsville. And then here we meet a major exit here in the Hickory area, as 40 is now getting signed west for Morganton and Asheville. And here we meet with Old North Carolina Highway 10 at exit 118, and guess what? We stopped at this exit and I managed to get myself a Interstate 40 shield selfie, so that was awesome. And then here we get another mileage sign with Morganton from, I don't know, because the bush was covering up the distance, with Asheville still as our primary, from 67 miles away. And then here we meet North Carolina Highway 18 in the Morganton area, as it's being signed for downtown and Shelby, respectively. And then here we meet with US Highway 64, and this is the last meeting with US 64 until Memphis, Tennessee. Yes, we do not see US 64 for a good, 500 and something miles. And then here we pass by exit 100 for Glen Alpine and Jamestown Road. And 15 miles down the road, we meet with US Highway 221 being signed for Marion and Rutherfordton. And here we get an awesome mileage sign as we're getting closer to Asheville. We now get Knoxville as our primary from 136 miles away. I don't know why NCDOT does not like to sign Knoxville at interchanges though. And then here we get an Asheville city limits sign, so they can do one for Asheville but not one for Raleigh. Come on, NCDOT. Here we meet with Interstate 240, which will take into downtown Asheville, as 40 is not getting signed west from Knoxville in the Biltmore State. Okay, I'm kind of more lenient with the Biltmore State being signed westbound on 40, all because we have Knoxville up there, but it should not be signed eastbound. This is fine for now. And here we meet with US Highway 25, which will take you to the Biltmore State along with downtown Asheville. For some random reason, US 25 South is not getting a control city. Like I said last week, that should be Fletcher, North Carolina. With Interstate 26 and the western end of Interstate 240, as it's being signed for Hendersonville and Spartanburg, as we're now getting signed for Canton and Knoxville. And then here we meet with US Highway 19 and 23, as they're going to be concurrent with each other, and our parallel road as we head towards the Waynesville area. And then we can see here that we're on Interstate 40 still, but apparently NCDOT doesn't have a shield up for Interstate 40, just for US 74. And here is where US 74 splits off from Interstate 40, as it's being signed for Clyde and Waynesville, and we're not just being signed solely west for Knoxville. Sadly, we did not take this exit, but we stayed on Interstate 40 for another few miles. And then here we get a mileage sign with two Tennessee towns, because there's literally absolutely nothing left in North Carolina to sign. Unless if NCDOT randomly signs the state forest that Interstate 40 goes through. And here we meet with North Carolina Highway 209 being signed for Lake Junaluska and Hot Springs. And here we meet our last major exit in the state of North Carolina, US Highway 276. And this is its northern terminus. And when I took this picture, I accidentally got the mile marker in front of the exit instead of the actual exit, so oops. But that does say yes 276. This was the exit that we stayed off of when we went to Waynesville too. And while staying in Waynesville, I managed to get some cool pictures of US Highway 276 meeting some major important highways like US 23, 74, US 19. I also got a cool picture of downtown Waynesville, along with this cool view of heading into downtown with the mountains in the background here. And speaking of downtown Waynesville, I recommend checking out a place called the Church Street Depot, which has absolutely amazing burgers and shakes and fries. I definitely enjoyed the food when I went there. And then another road that I got to experience more of was US Highway 19, where I got a couple of cool pictures of US 19 shields, along with a one-liner mileage sign with Maggie Valley from only 2 miles away, and the scenery along US 19. And I definitely recommend this place in the Maggie Valley area called Joey's Pancake House. In fact, this is where I got this shirt from, and I also got this hat off of a place off of US 19 in the Maggie Valley area. Though I do have to say that Joey's Pancake House is only open for breakfast and lunch, so I would definitely recommend going there early in the day and not 2 in the afternoon. And then another highway that I got to experience for the very first time was US Highway 23, where I got to take US 23 from the Waynesville area over to the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I got a couple pictures of US 74 and 23 together, along with a couple mileage signs and a picture of a couple of exits. And this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this video in the first place, is to show the pictures that I took along the Blue Ridge Parkway. Obviously, these aren't all the pictures I took, because I took a lot of them because that road was absolutely stunning. But I chose the pictures here to showcase how beautiful the mountains look when you're traveling along this road. It's just absolutely gorgeous and stunning. Like I said, I definitely would highly recommend traveling this road someday. It is, I keep stressing it, it is absolutely stunning. So we're going to begin the trip home here at the US 19 and 276 junction, where you can see that we're getting signed for Junaluska, Waynesville, and Asheville respectively. And this is where US 276 splits off from US Highway 19, as we stayed on US Highway 19 here to head towards US 23 and 74. And this is where US 19 merges into US 23 and 74, and these three highways are going to be concurrent for a little while. And here is the exit for Business US 23, which will take you into downtown Waynesville respectively. And you can see you also have an exit for Jones Cove. And this is where US 19 and 23 splits off from US 74, as we stayed on US 74 to head over to Interstate 40, getting signed for both Asheville and Knoxville. And this is where US 74 joined with Interstate 40 eastbound to head east towards Asheville, while 40 west is getting signed for Knoxville respectively. Our next mileage chime, we get Statesville as our primary. No, that should be Winston-Salem. Statesville should not be signed from 119 miles away. I mean, you could do it as a secondary, but Winston-Salem should definitely be on here. And here we get to the infamous 26 and 40 interchange, where we get 40 east signed for Hickory and Biltmore State. Like I said, going westbound on 40, the Biltmore State is fine to be signed with Knoxville, but if you want to keep the Biltmore State up here, that should definitely be Winston-Salem, not Hickory. I know that Hickory is another major mountain city here in the state of North Carolina, but it should not be signed. That should definitely be Winston-Salem. But at least 26 gets awesome control cities though. And then here we meet with US Highway 25, and it gets signed for the Biltmore State. And like I stressed last week, that should not be South Asheville, that should be Fletcher once again. And here is the eastern terminus of Interstate 240, and it's just being signed for East Asheville. And here we get another mileage chime with Marion on the top line, Hickory, and Statesville still as our primary. I just want to see Winston-Salem, please. But about 20 miles up the road, we now just get Morganton as our primary. Like, they just dropped Statesville, and now we're signing Morganton. What? Here we meet with US Highway 221 in the Marion area, as it's been signed for Marion and Rutherfordton, respectively. And then after passing US 221, Hickory now becomes our primary. Like, what? Why not just have Statesville or Winston-Salem? Why are you being so inconsistent, NC-Dot? And then after another exit, we get Statesville once again being our actual primary from a good 66 miles away. I want to see Winston-Salem. And this, I took a picture of this exit here because of the strange name it's called. Dysartsville? That's a very interesting town name. And here we get another mileage chime, as we now get Statesville from only 39 miles away. And this will be the last mileage chime you'll see until we get closer to Statesville. And then here in the Hickory area, we meet with US Highway 321, as it gets in being signed for Hickory, Lenore, and Lincolnton. And then here we meet another major exit in the Hickory area, as it will take you over to US 70, being signed for Newton and Hickory. And then we meet with North Carolina Highway 16 once again, being signed for Taylorsville. And this direction, we also meet with North Carolina Highway 10, but I only managed to get picture of the exit going eastbound on 40 and not westbound. And this is our first mileage sign since about mile 110 or so, with Winston-Salem finally being signed from 48 miles away. I wanted to see it since Asheville. And here in Statesville, I meet with US 21, which gets the control city of Statesville. And we also meet with Interstate 77 in 3/4 of a mile. In fact, here's that set exit with Interstate 77, and Interstate 40 just gets a pull-through sign. No control city, just a pull-through. I do not like that. But after going through Statesville, we get another mileage sign with Winston-Salem now as our top line and Greensboro as our primary from 65 miles away. So at least now we're getting into the good part of North Carolina. And then we have the redundant exits for US 64 once again, and this time we actually took exit 168 for US 64, being signed for Moxville, to avoid the construction that was on US 421 between Interstate 85 and US 64. And here we meet with US Highway 601 and 64 and 601 have a concurrency as we head into downtown Knoxville. And here we meet the western terminus of US Highway 158, so that was a very cool picture. And then on our way to Lexington, North Carolina, we get a one-liner here with only from 9 miles away. And then here in the Lexington area, we meet with US 52 and Interstate 285 as they get awesome control cities. And this is where US 64 joins with US 29 and 70, and we just get no control city. I mean, I know that we are in the Lexington area. What about places that US 29 and 70 go to beyond Lexington, please? And then once we split off from US 29 and 70, we are now getting signed for Asheboro, which is a good choice. In fact, we get a one-liner here for Asheboro from a good 24 miles away. And here we meet with Interstate 85 as we can see in the distance as it's being signed for Greensboro and Charlotte respectively. And then skipping ahead to the Asheville area, US 64 becomes a bypass route. And our first major exit on the bypass route is North Carolina Highway 49. And this is the last picture that I took on the route because my phone died, so I'll be using other pictures that I took when I was on US 64, like previous times. And here's a previous picture that I took of Interstate 73 and 74 being signed for Rockingham and Greensboro respectively. And I do not like that control city for 64 East. That should definitely be Raleigh. And here we meet the Zoo Connector, which will take you over to the North Carolina Highway Zoo. And then now we meet with North Carolina Highway 42 being signed for Asheboro and Sanford respectively, which are good choices. And this is where we reunite with the business route as we're not getting scientists for Siler City still. No, that should be Raleigh. And then skipping ahead to the Siler City area, we meet with US 421, and we hopped onto US 421 South or Sanford here. And then skipping all the way down to US 115511, we're now going to be hopping onto exit 149A for northbound, heading towards Raleigh and Pittsboro. And this is where 15501 splits off from US 1 as they're getting signed for Pittsboro and Chapel Hill, while US 1 is going to continue north towards Raleigh. In fact, on our next mileage time, we do get Raleigh as our primary from looking 27 miles away. And here's the exit that we took off Old US Highway 1, which we took over to North Carolina Highway 42, and we followed that home. So that is the end of the trip home. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about my Waynesville trip, and I certainly had fun going there. I certainly had fun getting to explore downtown Waynesville, visiting a few shops, along with visiting a couple of restaurants in the area. I also enjoyed seeing the beautiful scenery that's out in western North Carolina, along with going on the Blue Ridge Parkway. I would highly recommend traveling that road someday. And if you're ever in the western North Carolina area, definitely make sure to check out Waynesville. Anyways, here are my next few highways. So next week we're going to be doing Interstate 540 here in the state of North Carolina. And then after that we're going to be doing US 117, and then we're going to be doing Interstate 275 in the Tampa area. If you have any exit requests, please let me know down in the comment section below. and I'll make sure to shout you out once those highways release. So thank you guys for watching this recap video, and I'll see you all next week in the Raleigh area.